Terrorist organisation Palestine Action wasted no time flaunting their new status today. They decided it would be a smart idea to stage a protest in support of their now terror group.
What I would suggest is that instead of lumping Palestine Action with two other groups who are violent, that they tell the truth that the Palestine Action group is non-violent.
OK. You're wearing a Palestine Action badge. Are you worried about being part of the arrest here today?
Well, I was quite prepared to be arrested. I started to talk to journalists and that seemed to end with me not being arrested.
Interesting, interesting. Are you worried about lengthy prison sentences for other actions?
My wife has just been arrested. Obviously, the punishment is huge and there will be more people who follow in his footsteps, I believe, as Gandhi did, with the same kind of protest, and until, of course, the government recognise that they are picking on a non-violent group, and that's a mistake. It's a tactical mistake to lump a group like this with terrorists. You have to have distinction and clarity about what you're doing as a government.
Yeah, not sure about that Gandhi comparison there. Well, look, I care about freedom of speech, even from people I vehemently disagree with. I will always fight for everyone's right to have a voice and have their voice heard. But you won't be surprised to find out that some of them there were ready to put a stop to that.
Condemn Palestine Action's vandalism. I
will bring it to an end.
We're just having a good faith
Bring it to an end. Bring it to an end.
Just having a good faith conversation.
Bring it to an end. He's gonna go away.
Okay. They don't want to. Okay. Do you have a message for us? Okay.
Oh yes, the irony of protesting in favour of your freedom of speech for your organisation whilst trying to shut down freedom of speech itself. Interesting that. We were descended on and they tried to bully us, of course, out of the area, but you'll see they failed.
Now seen multiple arrests by the Met Police. Many questions will be asked whether the government made the right decision today. We've been interviewing a lot of people. There is an irony, isn't there, of people who want freedom of speech. There is an irony of people who are protesting for freedom of speech but don't want to hear what we have to say. We're just here reporting the facts. Look at some of the interviews we've just done today.
Yeah, it's almost like they only want freedom of speech when it benefits their agenda, isn't it? Well, despite the people who I can only describe as the unhinged hard left trying to shut us down, we found a spark of light of common sense amongst the crowd.
We've got reporters from everywhere, so I'm going for a bike ride. Yeah. But I think everybody, regardless of your agenda, report. We're here to see. I'm here to see. I think just report. Yeah. I don't like people arguing, trying to shut down one media versus the other.
Good man. The protesters, of course, could face up to 14 years in prison under the Terrorism Act. I asked those protesters if they were worried about being arrested and how long they might serve.
Absolutely disgusting and shameful, and it's a slide towards fascism and dictatorship, and more people need to come out and say they are part of the Palestine Action.
Are you worried about a lengthy prison sentence, given, of course, any open support of Palestine Action could get you up to 14 years in prison? Are you concerned about that?
I think if we want a functioning society, we all need to risk 14 years in prison and stand up against this disgusting legislation.
I would say a functioning society doesn't everyone risk going to prison, but there we go. There's one line, of course, that's been repeated over and over again.
There's a growing fascism in our country, and I'm here to do my part in stopping it.
Yeah, we also found some perplexed tourists who were trying to make sense of all of the rabble.
We have a lot of protests going on in the US as well, so I'm not super familiar with every law that goes on with protests here, but I definitely think that free speech is important. I was surprised by the amount of police that there were. We thought that there was, crime going on or something, but yeah, it definitely seems more police than most of the protests that we have.
Yeah, it does make me wonder what people visiting the UK must think of our country, honestly. I asked one protester what message he had for Keir Starmer and the government.
Don't persecute Palestine Action. Turn round and do something about the genocide. There is genocide going on. In the late 1930s, they pretended it wasn't happening.
he should turn round and take action against the genocide that's going on in Palestine right now.
Yes, after an eventful time enduring abuse, heckling and being chased around Parliament Square, we decided it would be fun to take a gander what was going on just up the road at London Pride.
Just about to start the parade, four came across and threw straight in front of us, threw the paint over it, over the actual vehicle, over the screens on the other side, and then glued. They already had the glue on their hands, glued themselves to actually the front of it.
And who were they? Who were these protesters?
So obviously the students or whatever, but anti-Palestine, pro-Palestine movement. They had the flags, waving them like numpties, and just sat down in the middle of the actual road.
Yeah, I don't think we were all surprised to find out who did that. Tomorrow night, I've got some bombshell clips. You really are not going to believe it, from Pride in London, as well as some very, very entertaining interviews. So you'll have to tune in tomorrow from 9 p.m. to find out and see more of that. But that final clip there really does show you the scale of the problem. The Palestine rabble, despite having Gays for Gaza on their side, will do anything for 5 more minutes of fame, even if it comes at the cost of jail time. Right, we're seeing these protests happening constantly now. Of course, this big moment last night when the government passed its ruling that this was a terrorist organisation, that landed at 12 o'clock tonight. And this group has decided that it would be a good idea to go in, obviously, potentially get arrested and put up to 14 years in prison. Now, many of those people there would say that that is an act of fascism. Do you agree with them?
No. I think that if you are going to plan anything as an organisation which is going to veer into national security territory, then you're going to find yourself on a watch list fairly quickly in order that the security services can monitor you effectively enough. And we saw this, I think, in the tail end of the 90s, the early noughties, with animal rights activists who also had to be monitored fairly heavily by the security services because of the violence that they were planning. I think what I find fascinating about the crowd who are protesting today is, from the shots that you see online, the number of them who were also protesting with Extinction Rebellion. There's certainly an old retired vicar there who was famous for protesting with Extinction Rebellion, and I think many of these people are basically retired, bored perma-protesters. And I find that to be an extraordinary way to spend your retirement. Have you not considered, a trip to Italy? Or
a trip to Italy.
Probably cost you less in jail time.
But Paul, does Keir Starmer have a problem here? Obviously, he's had to grapple with a lot of protests and rioting since he came into office just a year ago today, actually. Do you think he's going to be deemed as this sort of fascist leader because he's had to deal with so much of it within the course of a year?
Well, if you work in and around Westminster, you'll know, there is a protest on Parliament Square and outside Parliament every single day of the week, all the time. Sometimes it's Palestine, could be animal rights, could be free Tibet. It's all going on. Nothing wrong with that. The issue here are the people who think it's legit to smash stuff up, to disrupt the workings of factories, to, as we know, potentially disrupt military equipment as well, allegedly. And, that is over a line, isn't it? But I've been in and around the left for a long time now. There is a kind of certain psychology here of people who are perma-protesters. They couldn't point to the River Jordan on a map. It's not really about Palestine at all. It's just about this sort of narcissistic, self-serving kind of attitude. And I would say those of us that actually do want to see a two-state solution and a peaceful resolution, these people are one of the main obstacles.
I think that's exactly the point. That's exactly nail on the head, because you really detract from the fact that there is a really big problem with the disproportionate attack on the Gazan people, I think, by the Israelis. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I do not understand that October the 7th was a heinous attack and deplorable and the worst thing that's happened to the Israeli nation since the Holocaust. But the fact is, it's generally agreed, in military circles at least, that this is a disproportionate attack. And that point needs to be seriously made. And it's not helped by that woman saying, well, I'd be happy to go to jail for 14 years to see a peace.
But I think a bit brainwashed as well. I want to ask Lauren this as well, because obviously, before the ruling, I want to make this very, very clear. Before the ruling, Zara Sultana was in Parliament, but before she defected to this new... Defected, is that the right word? Because there's not really a party there at the moment, is there? But announced that she was co-leading, then not co-leading. co-leading or something happened there.
I mean, I think it's the fastest we've ever seen a sort of a left split.
Yeah.
You know, that Monty Python sketch with the People's Liberation Front of Judea, and it's the fastest I think we've ever seen one.
But she
show up.
was,
and I went to SOAS.
Well, okay, well, fair enough. So when she was in Parliament saying we're all, I think she said, and I will check that I'm quoted correctly on this, we are all Palestine for action, or something along those lines in Parliament.
It's covered by parliamentary privilege, though. So
sure, well, that's a good point, actually, Paul. But do you not think now, with this new potential party arising, that we're going to see more of this? This is never ending.
I think that there's a part of the left that's a perma-protest party. I think there's a part of the right that's permanently incensed by everything that's happened after 1968. And I think that those are just extremes of both sides that we have to deal with on the right and the left. I think I've always found protesting on the left to be very interesting. I remember going to the party conference one year, the Tory party conference, and I was walking from my hotel to the security bit, and the first day of conference is always that massive protest where everyone's yelling at you and calling you a fascist as you walked in to do your job. And I was walking behind a mother who had 2 children with her. And one of the children was just objecting entirely to having to be dragged along a street and was wailing and yelling. And she pulled over and she said, "If you don't stop yelling, I will never take you on another protest ever again." And I burst out laughing. It's like as if this is just what we do with our Sundays in our family. And I found this to be very, very interesting. And it's sort of every time one of these very, very left-wing protests shows up, I think about that woman and wonder where her children are now.
There is a certain amount of brainwashing going on. I mean, you saw the infiltration by some journalists into the group a couple of weeks ago, where on the online conversation, the activists were being told, "Oh, don't worry, you won't go to jail, juries won't convict, you know, the public are on our side." And then they shove these people into these dangerous situations and then leave them to swing in the wind, don't they?
Don't you think isn't this a problem though for the Labour Party, Paul?
It's not a problem.
I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem for all organised groups ever.
I think this is going to heat up more and more as this new party potentially arises. We're going to hear more about this. But anyway, we have to move on now.